Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always. And making his triumphant return on the show is our good friend, Mr. Daniel Harms, who is a film analyst for RGR Football and a fantasy football content creator for the Football Guys. Daniel, thanks for taking the time to join me again, man. What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back. And I know that, to the dismay of some of the Charger fans that I am returning. But again, we're here to talk football. We're having a good conversation. And I hope you guys can get something out of it as much as I do. So again, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we always like to have our friends come back, and you've been very kind with your time on the show in the past, and we've had some great conversations. So we do like to mix it up a little bit. We had Kent Swanson from KC Sports Network, our Blue Wire co-host, if you will, on before the season. So we're back to Daniel today to talk about Chargers and Chiefs. So really excited about it. Daniel also does great work for draft content. Me and him have always respond back and forth. I love picking his brain about the draft, especially with like receiver stuff. That's kind of a weak point of mine when it comes to draft prospects. So make sure you give Daniel a follow. You'll get great Chiefs insight, and you also get some great draft insight when it comes time to that. So I remember actually picking your brain about Rashee Rice, and so I wanted to start this conversation with Rashee. He's the leading receiver of the wide receivers of the Kansas City Chiefs right now. I remember talking to Kent, and there was not a ton of concern about the wide receiver room, obviously because of Travis and because of Patrick, but specifically from Rashee, what has kind of led to him becoming the guy right now in that room?
It's been a lot of what he wasn't doing at SMU. He was this guy. He was this guy that was running a lot of go routes down the field, winning balls, and that's what he was coming out. He was like this ball winning guy, and everyone was like, "Well, the explosiveness isn't really there." But the injury that he had in his foot, I'm not entirely sure exactly what it was, but he had a foot injury his senior year at SMU. And then if you went back to his 2021 tape and you watched him, like, there's explosiveness here. Like, there's something to that injury that really zapped a little bit of it. But right now, he's being asked to be a zone beater. He has been pretty much a slot receiver in Kansas City, and they are teaching him the ways of finding those soft spots, sitting down in the coverage, and then accelerating after the catch. They've used him on screens and to get the ball in his hands fast, because one thing that he's shown is his catch to attack ability is the best in Kansas City right now. With Kadarius Toney still working his way back, I think that he'd be better. And when it comes time that he's fully healthy and they're ready to kind of unleash him, if they ever plan on doing that. But right now, like I said, he's been the best at that, getting the ball in his hands quickly, generating yards after the catch, and just sitting down in zone. They haven't even asked him to run a full route tree with goes on the outside or maybe make some ball winning plays, things like that. They've been asking him to just work as a part of the offense, and they really love to do what Travis Kelce does, is find those zones, sit down, and then make yards after the catch. So he's done a great job.
It kind of sounds like he's been their Juju replacement when you're talking
right
about
now,
that stuff. So very interesting. Cannot really relate to the team using a rookie receiver the right way right now. It's frustrating vibes around Quentin Johnston, but running the love of the game routes and things like that, it's just been weird for Quentin Johnston. But we'll move on here. I remember, back in the summer, there was a lot of positivity around the offensive tackle situation for the Chiefs. Moving on from oh my gosh, Orlando Brown. I totally blanked on his name there for a second. And Andrew Wiley, obviously not matching the Andrew Wiley contract. I totally understood in the moment. I understand now. The Commanders paid him a pretty nice chunk of change. So a lot of optimism when, we were listening to things around the summer about Jawan Taylor, Donovan Smith. What's been your evaluation of the way that those two have come in and performed so far through 5 games for the Chiefs, or 6 games, I should say? Sorry.
I think the gameplay so far, really specifically with Jawan Taylor, it's been good when he's been playing, like not causing penalties. Like, that's been the biggest issue with Jawan Taylor, has been penalties. Like, if he can keep himself out of the headlines the next day with penalties and jumping, false starts and getting the little bit of tick early that he likes to get, which we see around the NFL. Everyone kind of does it, and no one else wants to get called except Jawan Taylor. It seemed like a point was made that he was doing it a little bit too early and lining up wrong. So right now, it seems like he's figured out where to line up. and where to, come off the ball and when to get into his drop step. And now he's got to work on the holding stuff, because the one thing with Jawaan Taylor, playing in Jacksonville last year and then this year, is that strength has been a bit of an issue. Like, going against the bull rush is something that has been able to get past him and work him upfield and be able to transfer speed to power, and then power into a club under or an arm over or a rip through. That's something that I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch on Sunday with Tuli Tuipulotu. Like, he's going to be able to do a little bit with his power. I'm very excited to watch that, because when you watched week 1 against Aiden Hutchinson, Jawaan Taylor shut him down. Like, he was able to get that done. So I'm interested to see what level of play he brings there. But I think on the field, he's been fine. Penalties, mental errors been the bigger issue for him. On the flip side, I think Donovan Smith has been up and down for the most
Mm,
part. He seems to be an all or nothing kind of guy. He wants to get
mm,
those pitching plays, and I think he really tried to do that early in the season. And then he would get beat a couple times and just completely miss his blocks. He's leveled off a little bit. He's still a little hit and miss with his pass protections and his run blocking, but I think he's, like I said, he's leveled off. But they're not going to be moving forward with him after the season. This is 100% a stopgap left tackle that they're going to have to resolve next season. So he's got to find a way to elevate his play a little bit if he wants to get another contract somewhere else as a starter or a possible swing stopgap tackle wherever he's going to go next. I don't know if it'll be in Kansas City, but like I said, leveled off a little bit. He's been better as of late, but every once in a while you see him on the ground, and I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of how it works out for him sometimes.
Is his play like, would would the Chiefs ever like move on from him in season? Not like cutting him, but like, I know they drafted Wanya Morris. I know they
Mhm.
have Lucas Niang. Any chance that Donovan Smith kind of becomes just like, hey, he's the weak point. Like, we got to mix this up. Any chance there of future changes?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
Okay,
they have a left tackle right now that's going to be able to play better than Donovan Smith has, and that's kind of been proven to an extent.
gotcha. Yeah, the Jawan Taylor stuff is gonna be really interesting, because I'm pretty sure Mr. Joey Bosa is chomping at the bit to get some revenge from
Yeah,
the Jacksonville matchup, and then you mentioned Thule as well, who's just been incredible for this team. So going to be an exciting one. I think both edge rusher, offensive tackle matchups in this one are going to be very interesting.
absolutely.
And kind of switching gears there, Charles Omenihu coming back, making
Yep.
his return from the suspension. What was kind of the vibe around him in the summer, and what's kind of your expectation for Omenihu in his debut as a Kansas City Chief?
Yeah, when he came in, I mean, we all kind of expected, at least I expected, he would be much more of an interior pass rusher, a guy who you don't
Mm,
really necessarily want to be a full-time starter on the outside. He's more he's a much better interior pass rusher next to Chris Jones or whoever they end up putting there. I think that's kind of what we've seen, is that you don't know who's going to end up as the interior pass rusher, if it's, Chris Jones, if it's Mike Dana, if it's George Karlaftis, if it's any one of these guys that can end up throwing in there. I do think that his first game back, he'll be more of a designated pass rusher. I'd be a little surprised if they brought him in full stop and just said, here's like 50% of the defensive snaps,
sure.
especially in a game that we have seen in the past to be high scoring and be more wearing on a defensive line. I think that would be a little bit more of a smart thing to do when you're bringing him in, off of 6 weeks of no gameplay, no practice, all that kind of stuff. Work him in, and again, you might see him on some rundowns as a defensive end, but I fully expect him to be moving around, maybe standing up a little bit on pass rush situations, kind of playing in gap, in out of gap, and next to Chris Jones, next to whoever it is. So yeah, he's probably going to be more of your designated pass rusher in his first game, a little bit plus coming back from his suspension. But he was good. He was good in the preseason. He was like the most effective pass rusher the Chiefs had, without
Mm,
Chris Jones, obviously with his holdout before the season went in, but he was impactful on the inside. He was able to win multiple times against guards, against setters. You saw him also on the outside winning against some tackles in preseason too. So he got some good work in, and he was able to get some of that collective, Steve Spagnuolo juice and blood into him before he was off to a suspension. So he definitely got some good work in.
all right, so interesting. More expectation from an inside perspective there. Chris Jones obviously plays a little bit here and there. So
Mhm.
George Karlaftis then I guess is kind of the next guy here I want to ask about, because he was obviously a first round pick. He had a good rookie season. When you look at his numbers, I was just looking at like all the rookie edge rushers from like the last 10 years to
Yeah.
put what Thule's been doing into kind of perspective for the Chargers. But George Karlaftis had a solid rookie season last year. He was a little bit behind Aiden Hutchinson, but I think it's safe to say he exceeded expectations last year. What have you seen from him this year? Has he made any significant jumps forward, or is he still kind of going through some growing pains right now?
I think the biggest impact that he's had from last year to this year is his hand usage. That's the bigger thing is that he worked in Tom Bahali with Tom Bahali this offseason to get a little bit quicker. The one pass rush problem that I've had with George Karlaftis, at Purdue now is that he doesn't win quick enough. It's the NFL. Ball comes out really, really quickly. You have great effort sacks, you have great effort wins, and that's still kind of the predominant pass rush factor from George Karlaftis. He's been trending upward the last couple of games. He's gotten more quick wins against Minnesota and against the Denver Broncos. I saw that multiple times, a couple of rips underneath. Chris Jones got a sack once again against the Denver Broncos. But if you watch like the replay, you see GK is like right there. He was on the other side winning just a hair after Chris Jones does, because he's like the fastest guy outside of Aaron Donald on the inside or wherever he's lined
Yeah.
up. So but yeah, he's been a much better force as a pass rusher. I think he's getting more confident with his hand usage, and that's a big part of playing defensive end, especially when he didn't play a ton before coming to Purdue, and then he's in the NFL. He's got the requisite strength to play as a run defender. He's been very good as a run defender this year, better than last year, I think, and he was a better pass rusher last year than a run defender. So he's starting to up his game in the pass rush department and really round out their front four with good players. And I wouldn't say George Karlaftis is an elite defensive end because he's still got work to do, but I think he's moving in the right direction to round out a group of pass rushers next to Chris Jones, who is one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, that is for sure. I was really hoping he would hold out for longer than he did. After that tweet where he was like, "I'm good. I can miss 8 game checks or
Yeah,
whatever."
right.
But he's amazing, man, and it's unfortunate. But I want to get to this linebacker crew. Obviously,
Yeah.
a player that the Chargers are very familiar with is Mr. Drew Tranquill. Um, First of all, is Nick Bolton expected to play, or is he still going to be out?
Yeah, he played last week, so he'll be back. He'll
Oh,
still be
okay.
playing. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, what's been the adjustment with Drew Tranquill in tow? Because I think like when he signed there, a lot of people were surprised,
Mm-hmm.
given the rest of that room. I think it's safe to say that probably the deepest linebacker room that Steve Spagnuolo has probably ever had.
Ever.
What are you seeing from that group right now?
I think that they were trying to figure out how they were going to use all four, because when you watched Leo Chanel earlier in the season, it was like he's figuring some things out. They were using him in some fascinating ways as like a 3-3 front defense where he's in the overhang, where he's an overhang rusher, like he's a linebacker,
Oh,
but he's a pseudo defensive end. So you have 3 defensive front players on, so defensive end, 2 defense tackles, and Leo Chanel, and then 2 linebackers. So it looks like it's 4-2, but it's 3-3. It was actually very, very cool how they were using him. And then Nick Bolton gets injured, and they were like, well, now we have to actually use a little bit more of our guy Drew Tranquill, who they really did want to get in mixed in more. And he's really elevated not only his run defensive play, you see he put on a little bit more weight from last year to this year. I think he was trying to adjust and learn how he was going to move with his added weight into some pass coverage. So early on, when he was back out there more than earlier in the season when Nick Bolton was there, he had some, I think, just adjustments to where he needed to be, how he needed to be able to trigger downhill, and then how he would get into his drops. But now that they've got Nick Bolton back and he's good with Tranquill and a step up from Leo Chanel, they almost have this amoeba type of defense where if you bring out two tight ends, they're comfortable putting Leo Chanel out there, whether it's with Drew Tranquill or Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, and just kind of using it. If you want to throw it, throw it. They're more comfortable now with Leo Schnell in that coverage role. He's still not able to locate the football as much, but he was much better in his drops and getting his zone drops and getting coverage. And really what I think Drew Tranquill has allowed them to do is be that comfortable switching out linebackers. Whether Nick Bolton comes off the field, they put Drew Tranquill there next to Willie Gay, and they can still stop the run. I think that's been one of the biggest additions, is that they've been able to go in their nickel or even their dime sets and still be very, very good, much better than they have in the past against the run. And it's really elevated their linebacker play. So his addition, sorting out how they were going to get the snaps all figured out, this rotation, it helps keep everybody, ready to go, not missing a bunch of time. Glad that Nick Bolton's back, but less reps helps everyone, especially throughout the season, as the Chiefs have played the most football games over the last 5 seasons than any team in the league. So it's just really helped them be more multiple up front and help them just get more diverse and get more bodies out there on defense.
Yeah, Drew Tranquill obviously has played, a former college safety, right? Played in more finesse style defenses under the Chargers, so it makes sense that he would have to gain some weight out there in Kansas City. So it's a fun group to watch on tape, man. If you're like an objective football watcher, it's a group that I'm not super excited to watch this week. The Chargers are going to go from a team who played 4 safeties most of the game, from the Cowboys with all their injuries, to this linebacker crew that just wants to thump you and punch you in the face, man. It's like I said, it's an intense group for sure.
They've been this group has been so much different. I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that they've almost all of them have been in this system for a long time now. If it's not 1 year, most of them have had extensive years in Spag's system. And just watching last week against the Broncos, where Nick Bolton had his interception against the Broncos, he was able to take over what Drew Tranquill's zone was. They saw a little bit of leak out from the running back. Drew just goes over there, and instinctively Nick Bolton gets back in his zone a little bit more, seeing that. I think that they understand it much better, not just from a linebacker perspective, but from the secondary standpoint. They're really doing a good job of passing off their coverage responsibilities and understanding where they have to be, better than they ever have in Steve Spagnuolo's defensive coordinatorship here in Kansas City.
Yeah, I miss the days of Ben Neiman and all those guys when the Chargers could just take advantage of those linebackers pretty easily. But this group
those were the days, huh?
Yeah. All right, last thing about the defense here. This secondary group, specifically the cornerback duo of Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, I think is not getting the pub that it should. Trent McDuffie, playing a lot of slot and just doing what he did in college, just playing tough, taking the football away. And then L'Jarius Sneed, our guy Arjun, has this tracker of who is shadowing number ones the most, and L'Jarius Sneed is like, I think, second in the league right now among cornerbacks. What's allowed that duo to really come into their own this year and shine the way that they have so far?
When we look back to last year, Trent McDuffie started the season after his injury as an outside corner. And then near the end of the season, it felt like the Chiefs figured out how they wanted to use both of them. Even going back to the last year when they played the Chargers, L'Jarius Sneed was lining up against Mike Evans a lot of the time. Like their number one outside receiver, the biggest threat to Kansas City down the field. He has been a Kansas City killer for like his entire career. He just seems to have big games every single season. It's unfortunate that he's out with that injury, because I think it would have been a lot of fun to watch them go at it this year again. They've
you mean
really
Mike Williams?
Yeah, Mike Williams. Yeah, just it's unfortunate to see those kind of injuries just take away, especially because these games are just as intense and adrenaline filled as they are. I always want to see the team at their best. I always want to see that. So that's unfortunate. But L'Jarius Sneed has been lining up pretty much as an outside corner this year. Like pretty much that's what he is. He is the number one guy. And you watch him against Justin Jefferson. Like that's all you got to do. Go watch him play against the best receiver in football. He was physical. He was aggressive. He was not giving an inch to the best receiver in football. And that's the mentality that these two guys have. They are not going to give an inch. And McDuffie, for everything that how difficult it is to be a slot corner in the NFL. You have to cover so much ground. You have to be able to change direction. You kind of have to be able to guess a little bit and guess right. And for someone who is not intercepting the football, he's still turning it over. He's got 3 fumbles forced on the season, like 3 or 4 fumbles forced on the season. That's the kind of impact that he has. He's blitzing, he's getting pressures, he's moving all over the formation. He's still playing on the outside a little bit, and then he reduces in the slot when they go to their nickel package. So these two guys, and when you look at like their PFF grades, take them for what you will. Trent McDuffie grades out as the best corner in the NFL, and then you see L'Jarius Sneed all the way down the Chiefs defensive list behind Kendrick Coburn, who just got waived today. So it kind of tells you a little bit about what happens
Coverage
and what's being
grades.
taken into account here, yeah, with their defensive coverage grades. But everything that L'Jarius Sneed, again, contract year, undefeated. Like, this is his contract year. He wants to get paid. I think that what he's doing right now is going to get him a lot of attention from other teams. Kansas City is going to be hard pressed to keep him with other situations going forward. But right now, they have one of the best 1-2 punches at cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah, no, that group has been fun. Sneed, super physical. Just I love the mentality from both of those guys. You know, that's exactly what I want from my corners. Get at the line, be physical, take chances, make plays. You know, and it's a fun group to watch. All right, we'll get you out of here on this one. There's been a lot of national media talk about the offensive struggles for the Chiefs this year and how it's not as smooth as previous years. What do you make of that group and the way that they've performed? You know, some people trying to say they miss Eric Bieniemy too much. You know, the receiver group. Is the offense struggling, in your opinion? And what do you make of like the national narratives about that offense right now?
I think whenever you've been at the top for as long as the Chiefs have, people are going to try, and myself included, be a little bit more negative to when you see things don't look kind of right. I think the Bills are going through some of that right now, where people are like, well, they don't look good. Granted, they're still like second, I think, in efficiency, offensive efficiency in the NFL. So something's going right in Buffalo, but there's always going to be some kinks to work out. And I think the biggest thing they had to figure out was who was going to be that go-to receiver in terms of finding those soft spots and zones. They're seeing more zone this year, and even when they're facing against man, they're trying to figure out the right play calls, and you see them get caught sometimes. You saw them get caught in the red zone a couple times by the Broncos last week, where they have a play that's set for man beating, and then you get zone, and then you have routes that are being run into zone coverage. That would happen a lot in week 1 against the Detroit Lions, where they expected to see a lot of man, and they flipped on them and they play a lot of zone. You saw a lot of whip routes being run right into off coverage defensive cornerbacks. So it's been trying to figure out what everyone does well, and MVS has been I guess just a wind sprint guy this year. He's pretty much running wind sprints, and he's not getting
Quentin
the
Johnson
football.
is doing right now.
Yeah, like these guys are playing almost the same position. And the one trust guy that they had, Justin Watson, just got hurt. And I think that Rashee Rice has been that trustworthy guy. You said he was being used a lot like Juju Smith-Schuster and setting in those zones. I think that he's taken that step forward to become the number 1 receiver in Kansas City. There's been also a lot of Sky Moore bashing, and I'm not going to entertain the Sky Moore bashing myself. I saw a lot of positives from him last week against the Broncos. And at the end of the day, it comes down to how much the offense is going to use you. So struggling, I don't think that they're struggling in the same sense that the national media does. I think that they've stepped on themselves multiple times. They moved the ball at will against the Broncos defense. They just did whatever they wanted to until they got to the red zone, and you had some kinks that they couldn't really work out. You had some penalties, you had some negative runs on first down, and then you had, Kadarius Toney jet sweeps and quarterbacking. I don't know. Some of those decisions I wouldn't personally have made myself, but again, I'm not a Super Bowl winning head coach and offensive coordinator. So at the same time, it's there. I think they really are trying some things out. Last couple of years, the defense in Kansas City was the slow starting unit. They were working on some things. They were trying to figure some things out. And after the bye, every single year, Steve Spagnuolo's defense got better because they threw out all the stuff that didn't work and they stuck with the things that they knew worked. I would not be surprised if that flips the script this year and the Chiefs are just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. And after the bye, they get rid of all the trash the excess stuff in there and they go with the offense. So I'm not here to say that they're struggling, but they're starting to figure some things out.
Must be nice to just be able to take the first month of the season and be like, yeah, let's just try some things out and see
And
what
still be
happens.
5-1. Yeah.
Yeah, must be nice over there. Chargers experiment with some stuff, and they're 2-3, so that's the fun situation right now. Daniel, this has been great, man. Always is a true
Always.
treat to chat with you every single year when the Chargers and Chiefs get together, draft content, all that good stuff. Sincerely, one of my favorite people to talk to online. So, Charge fans, go check him out on Twitter. Check him out on his YouTube shows as well. And Daniel will be in touch soon, man. Appreciate the time as always.
Thank you so much for the shout out and also for having me on. Just fantastic talking with you every single time we get the pleasure of doing so. So thank you.
Always, man. Appreciate it. Wish you guys nothing but the best over there in Kansas City.
It's going to be fun.